The scene starts with a group of friends having met together. The chaos breaks in when a man starts to attack people in the group randomly. All the people around gather around confused about the situation of why the fight was going on. The girl from the group yells out questioning who he was and was he hitting up her friends. At that instant, the man recalls who he was, claiming his past thought that he was a webtoon artist. He was Ji-han Kim, who was working on completing a series of the webtoon. He appeared to be tired and seemed to be packed with much work that would seemingly end him up to be dead in the coffin. Passing over the room, he gazes over his small cute sleeping daughter Diane Kim, who was a preschooler kid. For some moments he kept on gazing at his pretty daughter, who was angelic when quite asleep. After some moments, the baby gets up and Ji-han Kim just tells her that he was finishing his work and didn't get to sleep the whole night and thinks of getting sleep now. But his daughter doesn't hear him and she starts about the games they could play, and thinking of those, she finally decides to go to the lot world. Upon the whole convo going on, a lady enters the room yawning, and this is Jihan's wife Senayu, whom he calls his savior, as she conveys to Diane, their daughter, that her dad can't play right now as he is tired from working the whole night. Listening to this, Diane angrily says that he shouldn't work. Her mother says that if her dad wouldn't work, how would they get money, and how we would have yummy food. Then the child says that she can be the one to buy it instead. Listening to this, Senayu tells her daughter he worked the whole night and he is tired and has to get rest now. Saying this, she pulls her daughter away from him and takes her out of the room, and she keeps yelling that she wants to play with her dad. After a moment, he was left alone to sleep, finally at peace. For a few minutes, he dozes off and wakes up to the sound of cleaning and finds his wife beside him and asks what time it is, and she conveys it is 11:30 and he should have slept more. Ji-hung states he wanted to see her daughter, but his wife says she has gone to preschool. He demands to get her back home, but his wife says they wouldn't allow her to take her in between the lessons. He keeps on annoying his wife to go get her, and finally pissed, his wife agrees to pick her up. On the way to school, his wife says to stop in front of the store to get coffee for the teacher. He keeps thinking about the games to play with his daughter, and suddenly there is a crash by a truck over his car, and unexpectedly he dies in that accident. He roams around as a soul, has to watch his grieving wife and his preschooler daughter in mourning attires. His memory flashes as to how much he has left to do with her daughter. As time passed by, Daeung, now a high schooler who had to face many things, rejects the confession of a guy from her class, and as his revenge, he humiliates Daeung for stealing the wallet of another student who was lost, and later brings out the fact that she lost her dad when small. Seeing all this his daughter had to face, Ji-hung was furious enough and was ready to teach a lesson to people who were treating her daughter this way. The scene continues with blaming Daeung for stealing the wallet of her classmate. Complaining to the teacher, the wallet is found to be stolen by Daeung, who was accused of stealing. Seeing this, the teacher tells Daeung to bring her parents tomorrow. The next day, in the staff room, the teacher meets Daeung along with her mother. Seeing her mother, her teacher was surprised at how young she was looking, and Seonyu claimed she gave birth to Daeung at a young age. The teacher reminds her of why she had to visit her, as she was accused of stealing her classmate's wallet, and the teacher taunts her about what her daughter has done. Listening to this, her mother interrupts as she wouldn't believe her daughter did such a thing, and she didn't back off and question the teacher of how could she point out without any of the evidence against her. And saying this, she left the room, and Ji-hung was proud of the way his wife was, of how strong she was to protect their house. All the situation around, despite the gossips around her. Ji-hung's room was left as it had been since he died, and he was resting over there peacefully when he heard a sudden yelling of his wife calling Dae-hung, as was telling her to get ready fast and not to be late on the first day itself, as she was going to attend the new school. Since the day Ji-hung died, his wife would place a bowl of rice at the place where he used to sit. Daeung comes out to have breakfast and Ji-hung's soul follows her, and they both get disappointed with how Seonyu again made the seaweed soup, saying that it was good for their health, and this dialogue repeats for ages. As Daeung gets ready to go to her new school, Ji-hung watches on how beautiful his daughter has become, and Daeung believes that her dad would be cheering for her from heaven, and Ji-hung already claimed that she was doing her best already. At the school, the teacher introduces Daeung as a transfer student from Yuldo School and offers to occupy the seat that was empty, and which a student was late as usual. Later, all the boys look out for the new transfer student Daeung as to how pretty she was, and seeing this, Ji-hung was trying to protect her daughter by blocking their view despite being the spirit. Whole of the class was in chaos when a guy entered and appeared in front of Daeung, claiming himself to be Hong Jae-ho, who was the class president. He asked Daeung to be free to approach him if she had any questions regarding anything. Later, Hon Ji-ho asks Daeng if she likes to come over as he would show her the whole school, and she agrees to it, and they move out of the class. Yeji, who was the popular girl from the class, suggested to her friends would they hang out with the new girl in their class. Then Yuji's gang along with Daeng visit a store where all smoke except for Daeng. Seeing this, Ji-heng's spirit was pissed the student who was smoking around, and suddenly he stops by a door as he hears someone speaking about the new person who seemed to be he was Lee Sangreol from Jintu High School. As Daeng grew older, she was left alone as she didn't have anyone to lean on, but no, as she got up to high school she got friends around. And seeing this, that she was hanging out with a bunch of kids, Ji-hung was happy as his daughter had someone to be around her. And all the kids walked up to the karaoke where all the other girls were about to smoke except for Daeng, and seeing this, Ji-hung gets pissed and looks for the owner, and later hears out a man speaking out about a new girl at the class and says to his bunch that she was here as he was informed by those group of girls who were with Daeng. Listening to this, Ji-hung was tensed as his daughter may get hurt her as those people were trying to trap and hurt her. He tried to warn and pull out her from there, but being a ghost he wasn't visible or audible to her. Feeling helpless, he runs out to reach any people around who could hear him and try to help him out to save his daughter from danger. He falls out to the ground feeling he would be able to help her. But then appears a boy in front of him who can see Ji-hung and asks if he is okay. Ji-hung stops him to ask for help, and in a moment he can feel the environment, the smell and sounds around, and learns he is in the boy's body, and without even thinking, he rushes out to save Daeng at the location. Over there, the guy was forcing Daeng to drink along with them, to which she replies that she was good and thinks of just leaving. The guy pulls her back, not letting her go, and the other guys even block her way to exit. And out of nowhere, there comes a loud thud of someone barging and hit the guy standing at the entrance, and the boy fights against all those guys around Daeng, where the girl yells who he was and why was he hitting her friends, to which it was Ji-hung who was in the boy's body, and without spilling the fact of him being her father, he yells out that he was her boyfriend, to which all were astonished on knowing this fact along with Daeng. Ji-hung possesses a body and fights against the people to protect Daeng, and helps her escape from the situation. They ran out of the karaoke and standing far away from it, tense if anything happened to Daeng, as it was her father's soul in the boy. She thanked him for saving her, and he mumbled that he was now a living person and reached out to leave her at home, and unknowingly typed the passcode to the house, confusing Daeng of how he would know that. He panics and then rushes out of the situation, warning Daeng to be careful from now on. The next morning, at the class, a student who was known to be the king of being late, Hojunyu Saiwoo-hoo, his best friend, questions him about the reason for not attending school yesterday and says that his homeroom teacher was mad at him. Hanjun later explains his situation and does not consider him a crazy person. He feels like a strange person who finds himself standing in between nowhere and comes to his senses later. Listening to this, Saiwoon was wondering if this matter would be understood by his homeroom teacher. Then Daeng passes them, and Hanjun looks at her but ignores her, leaving Daeng strange. Then she learns that he isn't a different person from the one whom she met the last night who saved her. Later, after a while, the boys' gang shows up, the ones who tried to harm Daeng, and then they start to punch Hojunyu. Himself being unaware of why they were doing it to him, he yells in agony, and the other boys start to torment him for what he had done to them. Later, he starts to resist as if turning into another person and stops them and starts to taunt them as if they had nothing else to do except bully others and for what their parents paid for them for their schooling. Saying this with a grin on his face, he threatens them to get beaten by him. Hojun plans to teach them a lesson as to how those gang boys turning up to be bullying him. He stares towards the guy who looks like their leader and plans to attack him first. An instant, he sprints towards him, and when he is about to attack him, he was pushed down on the floor, and all the other boys of the gang start to stamp on him as if how dare he had to plan to attack them. He was called to come to them during break time as they were about to leave for their full-term classes. During the class, Seun asks Hanjun whether he is okay after getting beaten up by those people, and notices the fact that those people had tattoos over them which belonged to the 12 Zodiac's upperclassmen. Hanjun looked confused as he had no idea of them, and Saiwoon was ready to explain to him that they were the strongest 12 bullies of the high school each year, in which each gets paired with an animal as school tradition. After getting themselves tattoos, they are kept alone to choose their gang among themselves, and Saiwoon says that these men who attacked Hejun were a part of the upperclassmen of the Monkey Clan. Saying this, Swoon gets terrified as to why he would have gotten pinned up by those dangerous people. As the class was done, Kahoon proceeds to get up and take a visit to the class 11 people to see the end of this situation he was in. Scared, Siwoon suggests him to rather open a school bullying case. Hojun tells Siwoon not to let the teacher know and thinks that this is going according to his plan, says that if this wasn't ending they'd be bothering dying and looking at her, but from her view she thinks Hojun is someone who always picks up fights at school. Thanking Siwoon and addressing him, the boy with glasses worrying Siwoon that he hit his head hard, Hojun moves out of the class and plans to attack Anchovy's vulnerable spot as he thinks he has weak physicals despite his strange surface look, and then everyone gets distracted by it. He would head to the leader and punch his face to teach him a lesson. Thinking this, he enters the classroom and acts according to what he planned, and then he finds all others staying seated and spectating people in the class. There comes a voice welcoming Hojun, and in a threatening voice says the second period would start now, and he is the leader of the monkey gang Janyu. He gets beaten up and returns to class thinking that he would put an end to it soon, and saying this he returns the next day getting ended up beaten, and by this he thinks she have to get a plan to be more specific. He ragingly moves out of the classroom, and the other girls taunt dying for the condition of how her boyfriend was struggling for her. Listening to this, she recalls the fact that he was the man who helped her get out of the karaoke room, and now he is struck in this situation, and she gets up angrily seeing the situation and plans to help him. Meanwhile, Hojun marches towards the classroom thinking his plan would be succeeding. The other boys along with Anchovy were standing in the class waiting for Hojun as he was called after the bell rang. They kept gossiping that he would appear, and the leader sarcastically responded that he wouldn't want to waste his prestigious study time for them. Their Anchovy proceeded to move out of the class to catch hold of him, but he was stopped by the lead chief. A few moments ago, when Dying is raised from the class and decides to help Hojun, Siwoon is scared by the fact that Hojun will end up getting beaten by the monkey gang. What he will do later, he catches sight of the notebook on Hojun's desk and starts to read it. This was the plan where Hojun decided to fight against the high schooler. It has all the points to target the leader, and he should not get noticed, so he would enter through the front, and knowing that he would be far away from the leader, he decides to hide and march towards the leader, and saying this he pulls up his sweater and starts to bumping all along the hallway. While all were waiting for him, Hojun then appears suddenly in front of the leader and throws a punch towards him, but within seconds he gets kicked in his face by him, forgetting that his feet also existed. All turn towards them surprised at how he got to enter the class, and Hojun ended up getting beaten badly. He turns to apologize to him, but soon in a moment he throws a fist towards him which apparently is dodged by, and Hojun then catches him. The leader proceeds to punch him and tells him to get him off. All the leader wants to drop Hojun dead, but the moment Hojun realized it, he was raged upon how H felt miserable after Deda, as it was Ji-hung's spirit who was fighting him, so he refuses and chokes him hard, leaving him unconscious. Seeing this, Avchini rages up. The moment Hojun turns toward him, he settles down with his chair slowly, and all start to disperse and flee from the situation, threatening the whole class that if anyone went near Dying they would die. Saying this, he works out of the school and there stands Dying at a distance, seemingly feeling sorry for how Hojun looked, who was her father Ji-hung's spirit who fought against them earlier. She thanked Ji-hung, who was in Hojun, for standing up for her, and her father apologized to her in his mind for not being able to protect her all along. And in a moment, Hojun comes back to his senses and yells in pain. He accuses Dae-hung of what she did to him as if she beat him up, and creates an embarrassing scene at the moment, listening to which she stands there with an awkward expression. Her dad's spirit within Hojun speaks to himself of not being able to protect her all along, and the moment he opened his eyes, Ji-hung's spirit was lying over the crossroad near the convenience store, and he learns that every time he sneezes he comes out the body and reaches the next day morning scenario. And without wasting his time, he rushes to reach the place where Dying was. Then Hojun comes to his senses and utters in pain as to what happened to him and questions Dying about what she had done to him, like beating him as if he was a stranger to her, putting up with an awkward expression. Terrified, Haron kept on searching over the net as to why he was experiencing such a weird event, as if he was possessed by some evil spirit or anything wrong about the condition he was right now. Ji-hung reaches the school and knowing she was safe made him relieved. The other bully groups of the school know that the monkey group lost, tag them to be losers, and continue to bully them. It was the school lunch break and Siwoon woke up Hojun whether he wanted to eat or not. He claims he didn't want to eat, and seeing this, Ji-hung's spirit felt sorry as to why he was the reason Hojun got beaten up as such, and later enters his body to make him eat. The girl gang at the cafeteria was terrified to know what had happened to the monkey gang, and later learning that it would be their turn to get booked upon. Suddenly Kahon flashes out of nowhere and starts to munch over his meal sitting among the group of girls. Ji-hung, who possessed Hejun, was happily enjoying his meal, ignoring their task as it was the delicious meal he got to taste. He also tries to warn those girls of the attempt of underage prostitution, but they sway away the fact with a grin that they had the Lu protection and they were protected by La and seemed marvelous. The girls also accused his aggressiveness the day he broke out to the karaoke, and he could also be arrested. But smartly, Hejun also states he was a minor with an evil grin and warns them that he would be watching over them if in case they ever troubled Daeun again, he would make their life no less than hell. He even tells Yeji to have her see weed soup repeating the dialogue his wife used to say, and saying this he moves out of the scene. The scene opens near a K entertainment where there are a bunch of girls who are cheering up for someone. The man states that it was his father's company, and how would he keep out for such a debut? The man works towards them, thanking them and apologizing for making them wait, and claims to them that he would use much of the effort to improve himself, and that he was a high schooler. Kwak Ji-ho from Jinul High School. He was pretty popular among the girls, supported him, and he had a die-hard fan base, and he returns to his training session and cusses as to how dumb they were even after all. He was one of the zodiacs of the Monkey Clan. At the school, Ji-hung possessed Hejun was confused as to where this kid lived, and he seemed lost about where he would go now. As he walks his distance, he is stopped by Daeong, who calls him up for a talk and talks him to a deserted place. There Daeong pulls up the fact of him being some sort of superhero, and out of curiosity just comparing as to him being any Spider-Man-like hero. Confused Ji-hung of Hejun seeing his daughter like this thinks she was watching too many movies and being dramatic. Putting this aside, Daeong pulls out some antiseptics and bandages out of her bag and hands them over to Hejun. Seeing Ji-hung was pleased by his daughter's kindness. At the OK Entertainment, Kwak was just pissed by how those ugly fans used to always hovered around him, and he had to act as if he was pleased in front of them. He then enters the hall with a person who questions him why he had to go through the door, and Kwak answers in an attitude way as to meet those ugly fans of his. And his manager then reminded him of having a performance on his schedule, and he had to do his best before the president returned. With a creepy smile, Swank turns toward him questioning as if he wasn't doing well enough. He then enters the room of other members who were practicing for the event, and Quank just apologizes to them for being a bit late. Later he puts up his attitude again as soon as he leaves the place, and he just enters the room pissed and cussing everyone he had to face all around and blames his father for the position he was right now. On the other hand, both Haron and Daeon are kidnapped by Swank members and they step over their members. He reaches out and looks over Daeon in a nasty way and pulls her face, to which Hejun gazes him with a death gaze. Seeing this, Quank was teasing Hejun what the gaze he was giving to him and started to fire him up, after which Hejun punched him hard in the face, throwing him up all along the other side of the room. And the moment everyone witnessed this were terrified of what happened. Quank woke up with an evil grin on his face as if he was ready to put up a good lesson for Hejun.
The story continues from there, as they wonder just how had Hejun gotten out of there. We see some context to that, as Hejun had used the lighter that was in Daeon's bag to burn the rope they were tied with and got out of it. However, now he is left wondering just why did Daeon have such a thing on her. So he directly confronts her over this. Daeon says that it was done by one of her classmates. An argument begins between father and daughter regarding this thing, and Daeon is left annoyed. After all, to her, Hejun is a normal guy. Kwak Ji-ho gets annoyed by this and asks Hejun if he won't be coming at him. Kwak Ji-ho is outed as the leader of the 12 Monkey Zodiacs. Jae-han gets ready in Hejun's body as he sees a whole horde of members from the 12 Monkey Zodiacs. The members include Kim Won-sung from Jean Il High School, known for his crazy speed. After him comes a big guy, Dong King Kong, who is known for his great power. Jo Sam-mo, who is considered to be a top member of the Zodiac Monkeys. And then there is the guy who stepped up first, Monkey Magic, who is known as the Kicking Magician. Magic steps up and is about to fight with Hejun. He throws the first kick, which is quick and wicked. The kick is blocked by Hejun, but it still did enough damage to alert him of what is to come next. Daeon is obviously worried, but Hejun tells her to rest assured while watching his back. Jae-han inside of Hejun thinks about how he was never able to protect his daughter because of his untimely passing. However, this is his chance to do it. Before passing away, Jae-han was a webtoon artist. He would write webtoons with somewhat similar plotlines, where a high school student would fight off bullies to protect a pretty high school girl. He would draw those fight scenes but wouldn't be satisfied with it. which is why he decided to visit martial arts dojos. Upon visiting there, people would critique his art and show him how each techniques are executed. This would greatly improve his artwork. He would visit all kinds of dojos but never found the need to learn the martial arts himself because, well, he is a father now and does not need to fight. However, now he has the chance to use it, and as he already knows everything theoretically, he just needs to execute it. The magic monkey is down from the beating he received, but he tries to get back up. He fails to get back up though, thanks to the perfectly executed kick to his knee, which has rendered him unable to walk. This pisses off the rest of the group, as they also get ready to attack Ha-jun. The crazy speed Kim Won-sung and the top 3 Jo Sam-mo rush towards him, but Jae-han is confident. He says that if it were his webtoon, this would be the moment where he would become outright invincible. He wouldn't fear anyone and pick fights everywhere. The crazy speed throws the first punch towards Jae-han, but he easily catches that punch before using his elbow to hit Won-sung's arm. After that, he twists his arm and breaks it. Just then, Jo Sam-mo flies in with a side kick, but Jae-han sidesteps. This leaves Jo Sam-mo open, and Jae-han capitalizes on this by hitting the guy in the groin. Both Won-sung and Sam-mo are down from his blow as Jae-han feels invincible in Ha-jun's skin. Kwak Ji-ho watches this and claps, telling Ha-jun that he really has great combat abilities. He then takes his jacket off and starts imitating all the classic kung fu movements that Ha-jun made, while making noises. He asks Ha-jun if he thinks he is Bruce Lee or something. If so, he wants him to know that he is more charismatic than Lee. Kwak Ji-ho keeps talking in a weird way, but Jae-han guesses that this is just a ploy from the guy to keep him distracted. So, Jae-han waits, and when he finds the perfect opportunity, he goes ahead and throws a punch. However, before he could have hit Ji-ho with it, Ji-ho spun around and landed a peculiar kick to knock down Ha-jun. Ha-jun wonders if he is using the capoeira martial art, but he realizes that capoeira has bigger movements than this. Kwak Ji-ho charges Ha-jun, hitting him with all kinds of flashy maneuvers. Jae-han has no idea how to counter this style, and he doesn't even know what kind of style this is, as this is something he has never seen before. Kwak Ji-ho keeps attacking and talking trash. When Jae-han decides to push him against a corner while fighting, this will help minimize his movements, and Jae-han can counter him. As they are fighting, Jae-han manages to do just as he planned, and now Ji-ho has his back against the wall. Jae-han tells him it's over now, and tries to hit a backed-up Ji-ho with a side kick, but to his surprise, he hits the wall. That is because Kwak Ji-ho has used his acrobatics to flip over the kick and land behind Jae-han, before hitting him with another flamboyant kick. This knocks down Ha-jun, and allows Kwak Ji-ho to mock him. Ji-ho asks him if he has ever seen anything like this. He must have not, because Ji-ho is special. Ji-ho then thinks about the past, where he would have to stay alone because of his busy parents. He would watch an idol group that used a lot of acrobatics in their choreography, and that is where he got the dream of becoming an idol and started learning acrobatics. However, his flashback is cut painfully short, literally, as he is punched in the face by Jae-han. The punch immediately drops Kwak Ji-ho, and Jae-han takes this opportunity to get a full mount on him. After he mounts him, Jae-han loads up and throws a punch right in the face of the hopeful idol, as he is telling him not to. The beat-up doesn't stop there, as Jae-han unloads a barrage of punches on him which draws blood from the guy. However, Kwak Ji-ho manages to speak up and tell Jae-han to look behind, as Dong King Kong, the powerful one, has Dayan in his grasps. Jae-han is obviously worried because of this, and is warning the big guy to not try something funny with her, as he turns his attention away from Kwak Ji-ho. Dayan isn't one to lay low, so as the guy holds around close to her mouth, she uses her teeth to chomp him down hard. This momentarily gets Dayan out of his grasp, but it also manages to piss of the King Kong. She pissed him off to the point that he is about to slap her. This makes Jae-han panic, and in a moment of spontaneity, he tells his daughter to bow down, which allows her to dodge the slap. This is something he had figured out from his memories of when he was alive. Jae-han remembers when he first taught Dayan how to bow. It was a precious moment, which he showcased to his wife as well. They were so proud of Dayan, and thought of her as a prodigy, worthy of talent shows back then. The action was also ingrained into Dayan's system, so when her dad, who is now in Ha-jun's body, told her to bow, she did. Jae-han manages to find an opening thanks to it, and he tries to execute a flying side kick to the face of King Kong to knock him down. However, King Kong is the physically strongest guy of the Zodiac monkeys, so he easily catches Jae-han and spins him around while grabbing his feet with utter ease. King Kong then throws off Jae-han to the direction of various idol trainee equipments, making him crash into those and break them. Instead of being happy, this pisses off Kwak Ji-ho more than anything. He goes out and starts berating the giant muscle of his group for throwing Ha-jun into those equipments and breaking them. After all, they're quite expensive. Jae-han hears this and cooks up an idea on the spot. He picks up an important and expensive equipment from the shelf and starts threatening Kwak Ji-ho and the King Kong. He tells them that if they misbehave with him, he will break that equipment right there, and that must really bother them because it is an important item that is expensive. He starts teasing them by asking them if he should drop it or not. Kwak Ji-ho tells him to leave that equipment or he will end his life. Something within Jae-han gets triggered by this, as he really doesn't like words associated with the end of one's life, which is why Jae-han says that he has made his decision on what to do before dropping the item. This shocks both Kwak Ji-ho. Meanwhile, King Kong jumps right in to catch the equipment, hoping that it will be enough to restore his reputation within the group after his previous misdeeds. Some scenes from the future are shown, where the King Kong is seen at a mental hospital with his mental health in a not-so-good condition. As the scene comes back to the current time, we learn that old habits are indeed ingrained into our bodies, because King Kong, who was a former volleyball player, ends up hitting the equipment like a volleyball receive. The equipment breaks and it sends Kwak Ji-ho into a mental breakdown. But he is not allowed to do that for long, as Jae-han picks up the next equipment and breaks it. This keeps on continuing, as he breaks everything in the room, be it spotlights or IMAX, he broke them all. This leaves Kwak Ji-ho a crying mess, and as he is mourning what had happened, Jae-han brings up the last item. It's a hard drive that he is about to break, but a serious Ji-ho tells him to not do it. After that, Ji-ho starts begging him to not do it. He goes down on his knees and tells him that he will do anything for Jae-han. He says that he will even become his personal pet dog or monkey and make sounds. The only thing he asks in return is for Jae-han to not destroy the hard drive, as it carries all the music he had made until now. Jae-han, however, sees through his act and calls Ji-ho out on it. He says that he understood his intention of creeping up on him while creating a distraction, but it won't work on him. Ji-ho admits that he got caught, but still doesn't want his hard drive dropped. However, Jae-han brings out a lighter and threatens to burn the drive if they try to do something. This stops both Ji-ho and King Kong and allows Jae-han to make sure Dayan leaves the place safely. However, just at that moment, the lighter runs out, and so does Jae-han after dropping the hard drive. He and Dayan make a run for it as Ji-ho and King Kong chase them. Jae-han thinks about how he could possibly take out Ji-ho, who he despises, but the big guy is the problem, so running away is the best choice. As he is doing so, he can't help but wonder how Dayan is so fast, wondering if she has a talent for sprinting. Right at that moment, a strand of Dayan's hair touches his nostrils, and he realizes what is to come. It ends up stimulating a sneeze out of Jae-han, and he goes back to his accident spot as a soul. He realizes that he is out of Ha-jun's body, and a day has passed. This makes Jae-han worry, as he got out of Dayan's body during a tough time, and wonders if she is okay. He quickly goes over to the school, only to see that Dayan is present, and that she is looking fine without a scratch. However, Ha-jun looks like he is going through psychological issues, as he has his head down. However, Jae-han understands that at least he doesn't have any physical harm done to him, so it must mean that they arrived home okay. Just then, the handsome guy from earlier, Hong Jae-ho, comes to Dayan to give her some report. This ends up intriguing Jae-han. Meanwhile, a lot of time has passed, but Ha-jun is not up yet. One of Yeji's friends comes near Ha-jun to have a talk with him. However, Ha-jun doesn't respond. She tries for a while but to no avail. Hyo Saiwoo, Ha-jun's friend, explains that he is asleep. The girl tries to wake Ha-jun up, but he does not. Hyo Saiwoo explains that he is the only one that can possibly wake Ha-jun up. The girl tells him to do so. Hyo Saiwoo tells Ha-jun that the period is over, and it makes him spring right up, and he gets ready to leave. However, the other girl pulls him down, and Saiwoo is kicked out of the equation. The girl then tells a clueless Ha-jun to have a meeting with them after school. Ha-jun doesn't understand why, so the girls explain that their queen, Choi Yeji, has taken an interest in him. What's shocking is that Ha-jun doesn't even know who Yeji is. This surprises the girls as they can't believe that there is a guy in the school who doesn't know who their queen is. Kim Jae-han finds this quite funny. However, the girls find him weird for this. Ha-jun doesn't care though, as he goes back to sleep and tells Siwoo to wake him up when the period is over. The annoyed girls leave the scene. After that, Siwoo was seen picking up basketballs in the indoor sports room of the school, when Jae-ho tells him to go have some rest. Jae-ho says he will do the rest on his behalf, and this makes Siwoo very happy, but also made him feel he is missing something. That something was Ha-jun, who was left sleeping alone in a corner of the sports room. Jae-ho starts working when Dayan comes inside and gives him a pack of mint milk. Jae-ho is surprised by how she knows his favorite, and then the two start having a conversation. Jae-han's soul finds this uncomfortable, but the two people are happy. Apparently Jae-ho came all the way to Dayan's house to pick her up for school. Dayan also thanked him for last night. This makes Jae-ho wonder just what had happened last night. We learn that Jae-ho came to Dayan's rescue last night and even punched his senior Kwak Ji-ho in the face. From Jae-han's perspective, Jae-ho is a perfect guy. He is a gentleman who is good at academics, has a lot of friends, is good at sports, and is popular with the girls at school. However, the webtoon artist within him says that any guy who is that nice and perfect is definitely hiding something bad. Add to that, he is clearly trying to approach Dayan, so it doesn't feel right. However, he still doesn't know what happened last night, so Jae-han makes a choice. He knows it's wrong to take over someone in their sleep, but he takes over Ha-jun anyway. After school, Jae-han uses Ha-jun's body to call out Jae-ho and asks him to meet him alone for some important talk. The scene shifts to the isolated place, where Jae-ho wonders just why was he called there. Jae-han asks him just what had happened between Jae-ho and Dayan last night, because he heard their conversation while sleeping. Jae-ho asks him if he doesn't really remember what took place. However, he quickly realizes that it makes sense for him to not know. Additional details about last night is shown, where Ha-jun tripped up and fell down after Jae-han left his body. Ha-jun being knocked out made King Kong go for the finish, but Jae-ho tripped him down. Kwak Ji-ho and King Kong are both mad at him for this, so the King Kong tried attacking Jae-ho, but Jae-ho easily beat him up for good. Ji-ho asked Jae-ho just why was he there. Jae-ho replied that he was passing by. That being said, he now knows that Ji-ho was messing with his classmates, so he is ready to fight. Both guys get ready, and Ji-ho quickly gets punched and knocked down by the punch from Jae-ho. Ji-ho says he will not be letting this go unpunished. After all, Jae-ho attacked his seniors. Jae-ho says he can report him, but he already has some fun Ji-ho clips on his phone. Some of the clips include Ji-ho bullying kids, stripping them, smoking, beating up women, among many more things. Jae-ho says that as a trainee, these things might ruin his life. However, Kwak Ji-ho says that these videos can do no harm to him. This angers Hong Jae-ho, who asks Kwak Ji-ho if he remembers the name Jo Suing-yun. This sends shockwaves through Kwak Ji-ho's body, as Jae-ho talks about how Ji-ho took the life of that guy. This shocks Kwak Ji-ho, as Jae-ho talks about how it was one of Ji-ho's classmates in first year, who he finished off for his own good. A flashback is shown after that. The teacher tells the students to pick on the people they think can perform at the entertainment festival that was coming soon. The students have no doubt on who to pick, as the only clear-cut answer is Kwak Ji-ho. Kwak Ji-ho had blonde hair back then, and was still considered to be the star of the school. However, there was a different group of students who suggested a guy named Jo Sung-yun. Sung-yun was also a musician, who had gained fame from making YouTube videos. The teacher suggests that because they have two popular and talented guys among their ranks, why don't they team up for a duet? Kwak Ji-ho looks a bit displeased by this, but they have to accept it. Later on, Kwak Ji-ho was having a sit-down with Jo Sung-yun, who was showing him his YouTube videos. Jo Sung-yun came from a humble background, so he was not using any expensive equipment. Instead, he gained fame for using different household material to create his own ones. Kwak Ji-ho tells him that he has made some good music using those garbage items, but Sung-yun tells him that his father told him that there is nothing called useless in this world. He told him that everything has its own purpose, and this is what he likes to believe. Kwak Ji-ho feels a bit jealous because of that, as his own father is always harsh on him. Anyway, Jiho asks him what song he was covering in the video, to which Sung-yeon told him that it was his own composition. This shocks Jiho, as he did not expect this from someone who does not even have any real material. Sung-yeon says that his stuff is nothing compared to pros like Jiho, and praise coming from him means a lot. Jiho tells him to come visit him at his studio later, which surprises Sung-yeon, as he didn't expect that. Just then, a bully by the name of Kim Jukil attacks Sung-yeon and tells Jiho to not hang out with a loser like him. He invites Jiho for a smoke, and Jiho accepts and leaves the scene. After that, Jiho takes Sung-yeon to his studio, where they can't be bothered by anyone. Sung-yeon is mesmerized by all the expensive stuff Jiho has there, and asks for Jiho's permission to touch them. Jiho is indifferent to this, as he doesn't understand the fascination. As time goes by, they discuss about what they want to do for the performance. The plan that Jiho suggests is liked by Sung-yeon, and Jiho prides on his creativity. As Sung-yeon writes the notes down, Jiho notices that there is a cut on his wrist. This makes him ask Sung-yeon about his deal with Kim Gyu-cheol. He says that the guy is a proper bully, yes, but it seems like he has a different level of hatred towards Sung-yeon when he is bullying him. Sung-yeon explains that the vendetta stems from the past, when Gyu-cheol asked him to write a song for his crush. Sung-yeon rejected that, and that was the catalyst behind the bullying that takes place now. Jiho calls this a shameful act, but he tells Sung-yeon that he could have just wrote the song and saved himself. Sung-yeon replies that it was a confession song for a girl he did not even like, and he cannot write music if he does not feel it. Jiho is a bit bothered by this mindset, but Sung-yeon asks him if he is close with Gyu-cheol. Jiho quickly denies that, stating that those guys are just sucking up to him for his father. Maybe they do it because they think that they will be able to meet celebrities through Jiho. They have a good laugh about these things, and Jiho also makes sure to feed Sung-yeon, which is why he orders hamburgers. Sung-yeon enjoys the food and the overall hospitality of Kwak Jiho, which is why he tells him how it feels good for someone who has no mother. This heavily bothers Jiho, who feels this came out of nowhere and is ruining the mood that he set. However, he does add to this by letting Sung-yeon know that he has 3 mothers. This shocks Sung-yeon, so he further elaborates that it is because his father likes the reproduction procedure. This makes Sung-yeon laugh a bit, but he makes sure to apologize for it right away. All in all, the sit-down went well. Sung-yeon was getting ready to leave when he told Jiho how good his hospitality and food were. Jiho tells him that he should invite Jiho to his place in return. Sung-yeon says that he will surely invite him to his house one day and introduce him to his father, who is a good father. The scene drastically changes to the funeral of Jo Sung-yeon, who had now passed away. Kwak Jiho went to visit him, where he saw his father crying. However, the father regroups himself and quickly offers food to him, while asking him if he was Jiho. Back to the time when Sung-yeon was still alive, the school canteen served the students with some not-so-flattering food. This made the bullies angry, as they questioned how someone could eat that kind of food. They ruined the food and dropped their cigarettes on them. After totally ruining the food, the bullies call for someone to finish this expensive food off. And who other can they target but a bypassing Jo Sung-yeon? They tell Sung-yeon to finish up the food if he does not want to get hurt. Jiho doesn't quite like this, as he has gotten closer to Sung-yeon, so he just slaps the plate of food to the ground. Despite this, the bullies made it seem like it was some sort of extra punishment from Jiho rather than a sign of defiance. They tell Sung-yeon to lick the food off the ground. They tell him it is the new delicacy which he needs to pay about $90 for. Under immense pressure from the bullies, and no further assistance from Jiho, Sung-yeon does as was told to him. Later that day, Jiho once again took Sung-yeon to the studio, where he was training him to be a better dancer so that when they perform it looks good. Sung-yeon is not quite good at it, but he says that he does enjoy the training, but Jiho makes it clear that his lack of skills is not. After that, Jiho brings up the incident in the canteen, but Sung-yeon tells him it is fine. He quotes Mahatma Gandhi and preaches his belief in the belief of nonviolence. He says that he would not want Jiho to suffer because of him, so he is fine with Jiho not defending him. Jiho stuffs his mouth with a drink, telling him to not get so philosophical and focus on the project. They then go on to record the bridge portion of the song they were making for their performance. When Sung-yeon eventually passed away, and Jiho stood in front of his picture, he exclaimed how the non-violence belief was wrong all along. Back to another day of bullying for Jo Sung-yeon. He was being beaten up to a pulp by those same bullies, leaving him bloody. All the while Jiho would sit in a corner, smoking. After a considerable amount of beating, Jiho suggests for them to stop now, and says that he will be leaving. However, one of the bullies tells Jiho to stop, and calls him out for being the only one who has not hit Sung-yeon. They say that it is really hurting them, and asks Jiho if he is doing all that because he is, as the rumors say. There are rumors going on that Jiho was stealing Jo Sung-yeon's talent. It was said that Jiho, while being the better-looking one, paled in comparison to Sung-yeon's talent. Soon they started mocking Jiho for his lack of talent, his father's wealth, and basically labeled him as a nepotism product. The bullies point these out as well in an attempt to fire Jiho up. Jiho turns around and goes towards Sung-yeon and picks him up. The bullies are very happy that this is happening, as they have Jiho on their side. Sung-yeon tells Jiho it is fine, and that he can hit him, but Jiho should not betray his own feelings. Jiho tells him to shut up, and puts his glasses back on him, as they had fallen during the beatdown. After that, Jiho takes his top off, giving it to Sung-yeon, telling him to stay safe and wipe himself off the blood, while he fights the bullies. Jiho then approaches the bullies, and says that he will write a brand new chapter in their story. The chapter will be called, How I Got Beaten Up by an Idol Trainee, as he flexes his muscles and courage at them. Suddenly, Jiho wakes up from Sung-yeon calling out to him. He wakes up in shock, as he is told by Sung-yeon that he was beaten up badly by the bullies. Sung-yeon tells him how he was being courageous, but soon got his butt hooped by them. What is even more shocking is that Sung-yeon told him that the bullies only stopped when Sung-yeon told them about non-violence. They laughed and left after that. Sung-yeon tells him to not fight anymore, as it is not good, and besides, his fighting style is flashy but not effective. Jiho tells him that he only lost because it was a 3-on-1 and if it was fair, he would have won, and if Sung-yeon does not believe it, he can beat him up to make him believe it. Sung-yeon tells him to not fight for that exact reason, and the festival is nearby too. Jiho asks him if he will be able to train today, to which Sung-yeon agrees and the two of them go to hone their craft. On the day of the festival, Jiho colors his hair pink and was waiting for Sung-yeon, but he did not come in time, which is why Jiho is forced to start the performance on his own and hopes that Sung-yeon will come for his part. He puts on a flashy performance, which the men hate because it is not much singing, but the girls love it because Jiho is good-looking. However, the guys change their mind when Jiho brings hot background dancer girls from TV shows to the performance thanks to his father. The performance eventually ends without Sung-yeon, which makes Jiho worry. Meanwhile, the bullies are talking among themselves at the park. They talk about how they locked up Sung-yeon. They confiscate his phone to sell it, but talk about how it is cheap. At one point, some of the bullies leave the scene as they got some things to do, but they tell Gyu Cheol that they will be back soon. Gyu Cheol was watching Crayon Shin-chan on his phone when he saw that Jiho was calling Sung-yeon. Gyu Cheol finds this behavior of Jiho to be creepy like a stalker. He picks up the phone to mess with Jiho, but to his surprise, Jiho was standing right behind him. Jiho uses the DIY guitar of Sung-yeon to smash Gyu Cheol's head, all the while asking him to tell where Sung-yeon was. However, it seems the hit from the guitar had severely damaged one of Gyu Cheol's eye, creating a whole new dilemma.